Well, hello and welcome to the plush surroundings of Lord Hesketh's box, the boss, of course, of Towcester. Towcester is the new home of the English Greyhound Derby, backed by Star Sports, and we're going to have a general discussion about what should be an historic 2017 running of the great competition, the greatest greyhound competition in the world, Ian. Anyway,
this part of the world.
I digress. Martin Chapman of Star Sports. Ben Keith, Star Sports' involvement in the Greyhound Derby. You're passionate greyhound men. You must be loving it.
I love it. Look, I mean, Ben's been, I knew Ben when he was a spotty little 12-year-old at Hove Dogs going back. And he used to come up and blag prices for, you'd have 7 or 2 in the ball, and but can I have 4 or 5 as that? And he'd leave him and his dad, and I shouldn't say about illegal gambling really, or gambling underage, but that's the way it was back in those days. And he's come on there and has always been a great supporter of greyhound racing, and through betting at Oxford and Walthamstow and Sittingbourne and Coventry and wherever else he's bet, and suddenly it's his dream to want to sponsor the Greyhound Derby. Fair play to him, independent bookmaker has put the money up, and what a great place, his great new surroundings to have the competition. As a whole, people say it's a new beginning for greyhound racing. It's certainly a step forward. Wimbledon had the heritage of it in the last few years. No disrespect to those, but it comes.
It had a great history.
A new place. The history was there. Obviously, the White City before that. You can't beat the great history, and we just like to keep the history of the race going. It's the 90th running, so it's that little bit of round figure about it, the 90th year, and what a new place to start. Hopefully, for many years to come here at Towcester.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Wimbledon had the tradition and the history, but Kevin, it was towards the end a dilapidated, tired old lady of a stadium, and this we hope and we assume, and we're pretty confident, gives fresh impetus to the Greyhound Derby, certainly in the English version. Yeah,
it certainly does. Yeah, Wimbledon, as good as it was for all those years as home of the Derby, it sort of had its day, and this is the future now. It was the only place the English Derby could be run for me. The surroundings are fabulous, and they really know how to put on a good night here. It will be superb with all the plans they've got in place, and street performers and food vans and all sorts going to be going on now. I think it'll be the best English Derby we've seen for a long, long time.
Can I just take you a step back then to give me your best Greyhound Derby memory, and of course that would presumably include Wimbledon. You're too young for White City, sadly.
Yes, unfortunately I never got to go to White City, but no, from a personal point of view, Screen Critic making the final 2013, finishing 4th was very, very special. But I've been lucky enough to see some great dogs at Wimbledon. Obviously Westmead Hawk, Some Picture was another seriously good greyhound. No, so plenty of good memories, but obviously very special making it to the final ourselves. And hopefully we can make the first one at Towcester as well.
Ian, your favourite English Greyhound Derby memory?
Obviously they're Irish based. My first great memory was Farlow Melody winning. As a youngish lad, Matt O'Donnell, Farlow Melody was he was a superstar. It was around the time where Matt O'Donnell had a kennel full of superstars, Arthur Mick, Farlow Melody, and others, and he was a great derby. He was a great greyhound.
Matt O'Donnell and Joe McKenna just drove each other on, didn't they?
Very much so. At the time, it was a case of who was going to win it that year. That's the way it was. But 1992, I think it was. I was present, so I was standing behind the commentary box, and I'll never forget it. And then in more recent years, Loyal Hunter was a bit special. Seamus Graham was such a great friend of the family, and it was brilliant to see him winning, especially after what had happened with Premier Fantasy and all the times he'd gone close with Mineola, Farlow, and I think Blue Majestic got to a final for him. And Loyal Hunter, of course, been in the final the previous year. And something
pretty unlucky if you see that replay behind Westmead Lord, and I'm all over the Westmeads, of course.
That was a special night, it really was a special night. And great memories of Loyal Hunter.
Would Premier Fantasy be the best greyhound in the modern era that to have come over from Ireland? I know things didn't quite go for him in the semi-finals. Extraordinary injury, etc. Tragic it was.
I think he was the best greyhound in the history of Ireland. I think he was an absolute.
He was a world beater, then, compared to Premier Fantasy.
He's not too dissimilar, of course, the colouring as well and everything like that. He seems more a lengthy type of greyhound, longer type stride than Premier Fantasy was more of a racy type dog. But in terms of talent, he's not far behind. You know what I mean? And who's to say next year we won't be talking about Clare's Rocket Disgrace all the time? Who knows what will happen? Obviously, he had his magical mystery tour at the back end of last year, but he's back. He's everything suggests that he's well, and I'd be amazed if he doesn't hold the clock here at Towcester very shortly.
And Kevin, obviously, leading greyhound trainer based here at Towcester now. When you were younger and in your formative years as a trainer, what was the trainers that you looked up to? Is it quite simply Charlie Lister with that 7 times Derby record?
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Lister was a man we all sort of grew up wanting to emulate. I mean, the Derby record, 7 Derby wins is just incredible, isn't it? Obviously, Nick Savile is another one, to breed Derby winners, do everything himself is very, very special. And obviously the big Irish trainers like Hennessy and Buckley are always up there as well, aren't they? So, no, but Charlie Lister is certainly the Derby king, isn't he, And
favourite sort of Derby memory? I mean, I seem to change my mind all the time, but always come back to Westmead Hawk 205, 206, I think it was. And the fact that at that stage he pretty much transcended greyhound racing when you think he ended up being in waxwork in Madame Tussauds. I mean, you wouldn't think that, but perhaps in the new surroundings of Towcester, and perhaps the projection that we that can help greyhound racing sort of move forward and get back to that sort of level. You see that?
Certainly what we need. Yeah, I mean, a big superstar again for the sport would be ideal, wouldn't it? Especially somewhere like this where you could, bring the press and everything and make a real occasion of it. Hopefully it can make the mainstream media again. But superstars like the Hawk, few and far between, aren't they? Very, very difficult. But
I think Westmead Hawk got it mainstream, really. I mean, a couple of lads in the office who wouldn't be greyhound people, but they love watching the Westmead Hawk final videos on YouTube, and I think Elwood Live's commentary. I think it's when the semi-final, and he went, "Oh my God, he's got up from another." But he literally was like, tailed from the back straight and got up. And even in the final, he's an icon. He's Westmead Hawk, and that gets played more times on our office on the YouTube than a lot of greyhound videos do, even from non-greyhound people. So,
as a punter, then, in terms of sort of your greyhound racing betting history, I mean, what's the best bet that you've had?
You always think the Derby
it sounds already like a hard luck story.
I did back Ringer Hustle a long time ago. I think 28-1, which was a good feel. I think the year '93, I think Ringer Hustle was. My hard luck story, funny you mentioned about Lister, was Ningbo Jack many moons ago. I was at Sandown. I was at Sandown on the rails one night, merrily betting away. Someone I had done a favour, somebody had a bit of money, and in the days before, Ferns used to bet 6 places. These same Ferns only bet 4 places. I bet him each way 4 places, 33-1. Obviously got to the final. He was a lead or nothing dog. The sponsors at the time bet dogs to finish last. I thought, well, if he misses a break, he'll finish last. But you can see where this is going. He obviously finished 5th. So, that's a typical story there of my hard luck. But no, it's been, I agree with Kev. I think some pitches the best dog I've seen him win with. And he was an absolute machine. Yeah. Just to see him flying around the outside, absolute poetry in motion. He was a great dog. And then Moral Standards, another great dog, very similar. But,
very similar
after Westmead Hawk, probably got overshadowed really from his, last to first sort of style of running. Tom's the best, another dog who probably wouldn't have been suited by this place, being a wide runner that he was, but he's a strong runner, wide and come and mow him down. Of course, won the Irish Derby as well, didn't he? So
Moral Standards, I think in many ways, he ripped up the textbook that we thought was required to win a Wimbledon Derby, which then obviously, not just, I think Hawk just shredded it in the end, didn't he, in many ways. Ian, in terms of sort of punting,
Mineola Farlow was the one that the nearly won.
I love Seamus, but I'm sorry, I'm not that gutted for you, I have to say.
Yeah, I was actually at a friend's wedding. It was one of my best friend's wedding, and they did no Sky Sports in the hotel, and it was in a hotel called the Berkeley Court, a 5-star hotel. It's about half a mile from Shelburne Park.
You have breakfast there every morning, I know.
Absolutely, yeah. Got a taxi to Shelburne Park and arrived in as they're halfway down the back straight with Mineola Farlow in front, and I saw the Hawk going. And by all standards, the Hawk's 2 victories in the finals were actually relatively straightforward for him. It was the semi-final performance that was the one that will always get
he turned handy in the second final. It was almost like, where was he there? He off the second bend, he was like lying second, was he? I think in the
So my Mineola Farlow dream died that day, halfway down the back straight. He was buying me a new car, but so be it.
My hard luck story was, in fact, along with Richard Birch, is a name you guys would know well. We backed Summerhill Joy, who was led everywhere except the line. I think was picked up by Moaning Lad in that derby.
John Copplestone's.
That's the one. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean he was a dog with fantastic Irish form anyway, and he came across, and we snapped up at big prices. I mean, Birch is a better punter than me, but I think he had a lot more riding on Summerhill Joy. But that we always look back at that.
I was at that Derby final as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think moral standards probably. I mean, the Hawker sign. It's always difficult to ignore the Hawk. Would always be my favourite Greyhound Derby winner, just purely because he did something no one thought was possible. And when he turned third in the final, we knew that he was going to win it, and they were extraordinary scenes as well.
And yet we look back, and since then, numerous Derby winners, as you say, have come from the back or come from off the pace.
Yeah, I mean, Saladodja, I know, was slightly a different type of greyhound entirely. You know, he liked to be in the mix, but again, a strong running type. And his trials, to be fair to the dog, you know, had been pretty good. And again, he must have been a big price going into it. He was a big price, I think, even on the night, you know. So
the outside of the field on the night, wasn't he?
He was about 20 to 1.
Yeah. And did he not win a round all the way through? Was he the first dog to not win a round of the Derby?
Lord was the same, if I remember rightly, as well. So
it was like Alan Gift in the way up. You know, it was just like ended up, you know, as a Hove grader, which goes to show that, you know, the dream. People were saying the amount of dogs to be entered here, and there'd be a few dogs that probably, you know, do run in grady race at their respective tracks. But I mean,
what White City, 84 Derby, Whisper Wishes, the last Derby. Now we move on to Wimbledon 1985 Pagan Swallow, who wasn't, if memory serves me, particularly well fancied. And people, greyhound fans, didn't know what the sort of greyhound that was going to be required. They were in a similar position to us those many years ago. So the question is, what sort of greyhound is going to be required to win the Towcester Greyhound Derby?
For me, as I've said, I think is a dog that can hold its own to the corner, not necessarily a flying starter, but a dog that won't be too far off the pace, but a dog that really, I think they'll have to move down the back straight.
You need something, I think, turning sort of second or third at worst here, and with a bit of back straight pace, but something
strong.
You know, it might not be a superstar, you know, it'll just be something that's a good sort of genuine, you know, workaday dog that will just,
I'm not massively concerned about the wide seat issue, as I said earlier on. The wide seats that I'd be concerned about, the dogs that drift off the corner.
Yeah.
The likes of
the Royal Wire we saw.
That's
in
why
the
they're
trial,
not even bothering to bring them. But a genuine wide seat that doesn't go out to the countryside should be fine, and in a lot of instances will avoid trouble, I'm sure.
Kevin, do you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. I think you need a strong running dog. You know, what we think is going to be a 7-round derby is going to be very tough round here. You know, this is not it's not an easy trip, this 500, you know, it's quite a long run home. You definitely want that strong running dog.
This seems ironic, given that when Towcester was announced as the home of the Greyhound Derby, everyone thought, well, that's it, you need a fast starting greyhound who's going to make all.
I don't see that being the case. You know, I know everyone says you want an early pace rail around here, but you know, we're here most nights, and I don't think that's the case, to be honest. So I wouldn't be put off betting a wide running dog around here, anti-post to the Derby whatsoever. But say 7 rounds, it will take its toll. So you want a strong running dog. You know, you like to see a Price's Brandy or you know, that type is ideal. I think
that's the way to talk.
You know.
And also where the traps are for the 500 start, they're on the outside of the track. So you know, dogs, middle runners or middle to wide runners, all tend to move in towards the bend as well. So I don't think, you know, being a wide seed is unless you're a complete, like we say, a rule of the wide off into the car park, you know, a massive wide runner would be at a disadvantage at all around here.
So, just finally, Martin, and briefly, in terms of the Derby entry, we expect it to be absolutely massive. In terms of the greyhound that we think will win the Towcester Derby, sponsored by Star Sports, we're not 100% sure, but Maker's Paradise, isn't it? You should be laying 200 dogs, 300 dogs.
Let's hope so come the night.
Anything can win.
When the first two in the anti-post market and 1-2 come the final, I'll remember that for you, Jonathan. And I'll come back and let it haunt you. But
Okay. Well, look, chaps, let's wrap things up. And many thanks to Martin Chapman of Star Sports, leading trainer Kevin Hutton, and of course Ian Fortune, leading greyhound journalist. Hope you've enjoyed this preview of the Star Sports English Derby, and hopefully you'll see us again soon.